The massive starship Eternal Harmony drifted through the void, its hull gleaming under the light of dying stars. Inside the main assembly hall, creatures from 1,000 different worlds had gathered for what might be their final meeting. Air hummed with translation devices working overtime as dozens of alien languages mixed together in worried conversations. Commander Vextel stepped forward to address the crowd. His body looked like living crystal, tall and angular. But today, the usual bright glow that ran through his transparent form kept flickering like a broken light bulb. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of terrible news. "Friends of the Confederation," he began, his words automatically translated for every species present. "I must report that our quantum drives are dying. What our scientists predicted would take trillions of years to happen is occurring in mere decades. Our ships can barely maintain power, and soon we will be stranded wherever we happen to be when the drives fail completely." A wave of concerned murmurs swept through the assembly. The quantum drives were the foundation of galactic civilization. Without them, no ship could travel between stars, no communication could reach across space, no trade could connect the far-flung worlds of the Confederation. The Nexari delegate rose next. She was a graceful being whose translucent body normally glowed with soft, beautiful colors. Today, those colors pulsed in rapid, anxious patterns that everyone recognized as deep worry. Her species had mastered the art of rebuilding matter at the smallest level, creating whatever they needed from basic atoms. "The situation is worse than failed drives," she announced, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Our molecular reconstruction facilities are shutting down across the galaxy. We can no longer maintain the basic infrastructure that keeps our stellar engineering projects running. The great solar collectors around old stars are crumbling, the artificial planets we built are losing cohesion. Even the space stations orbiting our home worlds are beginning to fall apart. An elderly being from the Kethmori species, whose people had been studying the universe for millions of years, slowly stood. His forearms trembled as he spoke. "What we are witnessing should be impossible according to all known laws of physics. The fundamental forces that hold reality together are becoming weaker. Gravity is losing its grip on matter. The strong nuclear force that keeps atoms intact is failing. Even light itself seems to be growing dimmer as it travels through space." Beneath the assembly hall, in the most advanced scientific observatory ever constructed, teams of researchers worked frantically at banks of instruments that stretched as far as the eye could see. These devices could detect the faintest energy signatures from billions of light years away, measure the spin of particles smaller than atoms, and track the movement of entire galaxies. Dr. Yethkola, the observatory's chief scientist, stared at her displays with growing horror. Ancient stars that had burned steadily since the universe was young were simply winking out of existence. Not exploding in spectacular supernovas or gradually cooling over billions of years, but vanishing, as if someone had turned off a switch. "This is impossible," she whispered to her assistant. "Stars don't just disappear. Even if all nuclear fusion stopped instantly, the star should remain visible for thousands of years as it cools. But these are gone completely, as if they never existed at all." Her instruments showed readings that contradicted everything science had learned about how the universe worked. Entropy, the measure of disorder in any system, was supposed to increase slowly over cosmic time. Instead, it was accelerating at a rate that suggested the universe would reach maximum entropy and heat death within a few short years. Rather than the trillions of years scientists had always predicted, the assistant, a young researcher named Kenthlos, was monitoring the long-range scanners when something unusual caught his attention. While most of the galaxy showed the same pattern of increasing decay and failing energy systems, one small section seemed different. "Dr. Yethkola," he called out hesitantly, "I'm seeing something strange in Sector. The energy signatures don't match what we're detecting everywhere else." The chief scientist hurried over to examine the readings. Sector 7G was considered an unimportant backwater region containing mostly young stars and undeveloped planetary systems. The Confederation had surveyed it centuries ago and found nothing of interest except for one small blue planet orbiting a medium-sized yellow star. The stability readings from this sector are completely different, Kenthlos continued, pointing at the data streams flowing across his screen. While entropy is accelerating everywhere else, this region shows normal patterns. It's almost as if whatever is causing the universal decay cannot penetrate this area. Dr. Yethkala studied the information carefully. The blue planet in question was inhabited by a species the Confederation had classified as primitive. They had only recently developed nuclear technology and had not yet achieved faster-than-light travel. Their society was fractured into competing nations, and they showed no signs of the advanced cooperation that marked truly civilized species. It must be an error in our sensors, Dr. Yethkala concluded. What could primitives possibly know about cosmic forces that our greatest scientists cannot understand? But as she spoke these words, she continued staring at the readings that showed this one small region of space somehow immune to the catastrophe consuming the rest of the universe. 3 months had passed since the emergency meeting aboard the Eternal Harmony, and things had only gotten worse across the galaxy. Ships drifted powerless through space. Entire star systems had gone dark. Panic was spreading through every civilized world. It was during this desperate time that Captain Yelmyra received orders to investigate the strange readings from Sector 7G. Captain Yelmyra was a seasoned explorer who had visited more worlds than most beings could count. Her ship, the Cosmic Dawn, was one of the Confederation's finest vessels. Equipped with technology that could make it invisible, scan planets from millions of miles away, and translate any language instantly. She had seen primitive civilizations before, and they were always the same boring story of creatures barely able to leave their home planet. As her ship approached the small blue world the humans called Earth, Captain Yelmyra expected to find exactly what the old survey reports had described: a backward species that had only recently learned to split atoms, still fighting wars among themselves, and completely unaware that a vast galactic civilization existed beyond their tiny solar system. Instead, what she found made no sense at all. Navigation. "Officer Kelther," she called out, "are you certain our instruments are working properly?" The insectoid being at the navigation station clicked his mandibles nervously. "I have run diagnostics 3 times, Captain. The readings are accurate. Earth's energy output is not only stable, it appears to be increasing." Captain Yelmyra stared at her main display screen. Below them, the planet Earth blazed with billions of artificial lights. Cities stretched across entire continents, connected by networks of roads that glowed with moving vehicles. Orbital stations hung in space around the planet like jewels on an invisible necklace. Small spacecraft moving between them in perfectly organized patterns. "This should not be possible," she muttered under her breath. "According to our calculations, their primitive fusion reactors should have failed weeks ago when the cosmic decay reached this sector." Her communications officer, a tall being with blue skin and large eyes, looked up from his station with confusion. "Captain, I am detecting something very strange. The humans appear to be using communication frequencies that we did not know they had access to. They are also transmitting in what sounds like galactic standard." Before Captain Yelmyra could respond, her ship's cloaking system began to flicker. The invisible energy field that hid her vessel from detection started failing, just as it had been failing on ships throughout the galaxy. She expected this malfunction to go unnoticed by the primitive humans below. Instead, her communications system immediately came to life with an incoming transmission. "Unknown vessels. This is Soul Space Control," came a clear, calm voice speaking. "Perfect galactic standard. We have been monitoring your distress signals for the past several hours. Do you require assistance?" Every member of Captain Yelmyra's crew turned to stare at her in shock. Not only had the humans detected their cloaked ship, but they were speaking the universal language used by all advanced civilizations. Even more surprising, they were offering help rather than panicking about the appearance of alien spacecraft. The voice belonged to Controller Giwan, a young human woman sitting in a control room. High above the city of Seoul, she spoke as if detecting invisible alien ships was something that happened every day. Her tone was professional and helpful, like someone offering directions to a lost traveler. "This is Captain Yelmyra of the Confederation vessel Cosmic Dawn," she replied, still not quite believing what was happening. "How are you able to detect our ship and understand our language? Your cloaking system has been malfunctioning for about 3 hours," Jiwan explained matter-of-factly. "We've been tracking similar energy signatures from other ships in your fleet. As for the language, our computer systems learned Galactic Standard by analyzing your communications traffic. It's quite an efficient language structure." Before Captain Yelmyra could ask more questions, her worst fears came true. Every system on her ship suddenly shut down at once. The lights went out, the engines stopped, life support failed, and even the artificial gravity disappeared. Her crew floated helplessly in the darkness as their vessel began drifting toward Earth's atmosphere. This complete power failure had been happening to ships across the galaxy as the universal decay spread. Most crews died when their life support systems failed. Captain Yelmyra prepared herself and her crew for the same fate. Instead, she saw lights approaching through the darkness. A sleek human spacecraft, much smaller than the Cosmic Dawn, but somehow still functioning perfectly, pulled alongside her powerless vessel. Through the viewports, she could see a human pilot wearing a simple blue uniform. "This is Captain Minho of the rescue vessel Soul Guardian," came another calm voice over the radio. "We're going to attach tow cables to your ship and bring you to our orbital station. Please prepare your crew for emergency docking procedures." As the human ship effortlessly towed the massive alien vessel to safety, Captain Yelmyra watched in amazement. While the most advanced technology in the galaxy was failing all around them, these humans simply went about their business as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions. They could choose to ignore the rescue station they were brought to, hummed with activity and power, filled with humans who treated the arrival of a disabled alien spacecraft as just another routine emergency to handle with calm efficiency. The most powerful being in the known Galaxy sat in a simple plastic chair, feeling smaller than he had. In his entire 1,000-year life, High Chancellor Mordeth was used to commanding respect from billions of creatures across 3 galactic arms. His species, the Verdani, had been the first to achieve faster-than-light travel. They had spent millions of years building the Great Confederation that united civilized worlds everywhere. Now he found himself in a modest conference room. In Sol, Earth, surrounded by humans who offered him coffee and seemed genuinely concerned about his comfort. The irony was not lost on him that he was begging for help from a species the Confederation had classified as barely civilized just months ago. Dr. Hiron sat across from him, taking careful notes on a simple tablet device. She was Earth's leading expert on alien biology. Though, until recently, she had only studied theoretical possibilities since no one believed aliens actually existed. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore the kind of simple white lab coat that scientists had used for centuries. Next to her sat engineer Sung-Ho, a quiet man whose unassuming appearance hid one of the most brilliant technical minds on Earth. His recent modifications to human fusion reactors had somehow made them 30% more efficient, even as similar power sources throughout the galaxy were failing completely. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Dr. Hiron said, looking up from her notes. "Gosh, you're telling us that the entire universe is dying, breaking down at the most basic level, and somehow Earth is immune to this process." Tentacles writhed with embarrassment. In his home language, there were 17 different ways to express various levels of shame, and he was feeling all of them at once. "It is more than immunity," he admitted, his translator device struggling to convert his emotional undertones. "Your planet appears to sit at the center of an expanding zone of stability. Wherever human influence reaches, the cosmic decay slows down and eventually stops completely." Sung-Ho leaned forward in his chair, his eyes lighting up with the kind of curiosity that had driven human innovation for thousands of years. While alien scientists across the galaxy had spent months paralyzed by fear and despair, this human engineer was already thinking about solutions. "So we need to figure out how to expand that influence faster," Sung-Ho said simply. "How much time do we have to work with?" The Chancellor's translator made a sound like electronic weeping. "Our most advanced computer models suggest complete universal heat death within 2 of your Earth years. Every day we delay, more star systems go dark, and more civilizations die." Dr. Hiron stood up and reached for her communication device without Hesitation? Then we better get started right away. Swung Ho, I need you to contact the International Space Consortium and tell them to prepare for the largest construction project in human history. Chancellor, we'll need complete technical specifications for all the failing systems across your territory. What amazed Chancellor Mordeth was not just humanity's immediate willingness to help, but their complete confidence that a solution could be found. While the galaxy's greatest civilizations had spent months holding emergency meetings and debating impossible scenarios, these humans were already organizing work teams and making plans. You do not understand the scope of this crisis, the Chancellor tried to explain. We have scientists with millions of years of accumulated knowledge. We have computers that can simulate entire galaxies. We have technology that can manipulate matter at the quantum level. None of it has been able to even slow down the decay process. Dr. Heron paused in her note-taking and looked at him with gentle patience. Chancellor, with respect, it sounds like you've been trying to fight this problem with the same kind of thinking that created it. Sometimes you need a completely different approach. But what can you possibly know that we do not? He asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Your species has barely left your home solar system. You still use chemical rockets for most of your space travel. Your computers are primitive compared to our quantum processors. Chung Ho smiled, the expression carrying a warmth that the Chancellor found oddly comforting. Maybe that's exactly what makes us useful. When our technology breaks down, we fix it. When our computers crash, we rebuild them by hand. When something seems impossible, we find a way to make it possible anyway. But the laws of physics cannot be changed, Chancellor Mordeth protested. Universal constants are universal for a reason. Are they, though? Dr. Hiron asked, genuinely curious. I mean, humans have a long history of discovering that things we thought were impossible actually weren't. We used to think heavier-than-air flight was impossible, but we convinced the universe otherwise. We thought splitting atoms was impossible until we figured out how to do it. We thought traveling to space was impossible until we built rockets that could get us there. The Chancellor stared at her, beginning to understand something that both excited and terrified him. These humans didn't see universal laws as absolute rules that could never be changed. They saw them as challenges to be overcome through determination and clever engineering. Within hours of that first meeting, every major space agency on Earth had mobilized. Factories that had been building consumer electronics were retooled to manufacture components for devices that didn't even have names yet. Universities opened their laboratories to teams of human and alien scientists working together for the first time in galactic history. And at the center of it all, ordinary humans like Dr. Hiron and engineer Chung Ho worked with the same calm efficiency they brought to every problem, as if saving the universe was just another interesting engineering challenge to solve. The International Scientific Complex in Busan had never seen anything like it. The massive research facility built on the coast of South Korea now buzzed with activity 24 hours a day. Humans and aliens worked side by side in laboratories that had been hastily modified to accommodate beings who breathed different gases, different numbers of limbs, and came from worlds with completely different environments. Dr. Taeyun stood in front of a whiteboard covered with equations that would have looked like magic to most people. He's trying to explain to a group of alien scientists how humans approached problems that seemed impossible to solve. His audience included some of the greatest minds in the galaxy, beings whose species had been studying the universe for millions of years. The key thing to understand, Dr. Taeyun said, drawing a simple diagram, is that humans don't really believe in impossible. We see it more like a challenge that nobody has figured out yet.
Ask Colvin.
Colvin, the Zephyrian scientist, leaned forward with interest. His crystalline body was humming with energy patterns that indicated deep thought. For weeks, he had been studying how human technology continued to work even as similar alien devices failed completely. Now he was beginning to understand something that both fascinated and amazed him. Your species doesn't accept universal constants as truly constant, Colvin observed, his voice carrying the musical tones of his people. When faced with physical impossibilities, you somehow convince reality to reconsider its position. At a nearby workstation, engineer Nari looked up from her holographic blueprints. She had been designing something called a stellar regeneration array, a device that could restart dead stars by feeding them energy in ways that violated three fundamental laws of thermodynamics, according to everything the aliens knew about physics. Her design should not work. Doesn't everyone do that? Nari asked, genuinely puzzled by the alien's surprise. The universe told us that heavier-than-air flight was impossible, but we convinced it otherwise. Same thing happened with splitting atoms, traveling to space, and creating artificial intelligence. When reality says something can't be done, we usually take that as a suggestion rather than an absolute rule. The alien scientists exchanged glances that carried lifetimes of sudden understanding. Dr. Yenthkal, a researcher whose species had been studying quantum mechanics for longer than humans had existed, slowly rose from his chair. We have always worked within the limitations that physics imposed upon us, he said quietly. When we discovered that faster-than-light travel was impossible, we found ways to bend space instead. When we learned that energy could not be created or destroyed, we built our entire civilization around recycling and conservation. We adapted ourselves to fit the universe's rules. But you added Temlara, the Nexari researcher whose translucent body was glowing with excitement. You adapted the universe to fit your needs. You made the impossible possible by simply refusing to accept that it was impossible. Engineer Nari shrugged, as if this was the most obvious thing in the world. Well, yeah. If something needs to be done, you figure out how to do it. Laws of physics get in the way, you find a way around them or convince them to be more flexible. The breakthrough moment came when Dr. Taeyun drew a simple equation on the whiteboard. It was not a complex mathematical formula, but rather a basic representation of how humans approached problem solving. Impossible problem plus human. Determination equals new solution. Show us, whispered Temlara, her voice filled with hope for the first time in months. Teach us how to make the impossible possible. Over the following weeks, the International Scientific Complex became a place of miracles. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists to build devices that should not have been able to function. The stellar regeneration array that engineer Nari had designed was constructed using materials from dozens of different worlds. Powered by energy sources that combined human fusion technology with alien quantum processors. But the real power behind the device was not its exotic components or advanced technology. It was something the aliens were learning to recognize as uniquely human. Absolute refusal to accept defeat. When the array's initial tests failed, humans simply rebuilt it. When the power requirements exceeded all available energy sources, human engineers found ways to make the device more efficient. When alien scientists insisted that certain aspects of the design violated fundamental laws of physics, humans politely ignored them and made the device work anyway. The first test of the stellar regeneration array took place in the Vega system, where a medium-sized star had died 3 weeks earlier. The array, no larger than a small building, is positioned near the dead star's core by a combined human-alien crew who worked together with the efficiency of a team that had been cooperating for years rather than weeks. When Engineer Nari pressed the activation button, nothing happened for several long seconds. Then slowly, the dead star began to glow. Nuclear fusion reignited at its core. Light that had been absent for weeks began to shine across the system once again. The celebration that followed could be heard across 3 star systems. Alien crews who had been drifting powerless through space suddenly found their ships coming back to life. Civilizations that had been preparing for extinction began to hope again. And at the center of it all, a small group of humans worked quietly to build more arrays. Treating the resurrection of dead stars as just another engineering problem that needed to be solved efficiently and quickly. Captain Yemen stood at the center of the bridge of the UES, Harmony, watching stars being born again through the main view screen. The ship was humanity's first true interstellar command vessel, built with technology that combined the best of human engineering with alien science. But more importantly, it was crewed by beings from dozens of different worlds who had learned to work together as one unified team. The bridge hummed with quiet efficiency as the final phase of the Universal Restoration Project neared completion. After 1 full year of desperate work, They were about to activate the last entropy reverser in the distant Andromeda spiral. If this device worked like all the others, the cosmic decay that had threatened to destroy everything would finally be stopped completely. Final stellar engine confirmed operational, reported Science Officer Yuna, her calm voice carrying across the bridge to where Zephyrian engineer. Colvin monitored the quantum stability readings from his crystalline control station. Colvin's body glowed with steady, healthy light as he checked his instruments. Gone were the desperate flickers and unstable energy patterns that had marked his species during the crisis. Entropy levels holding steady across all monitored sectors, he announced with satisfaction. Universal decay has stopped in 98% of known space. Captain Yemen nodded, but his attention was drawn to something far more remarkable than the technical readings. Around him, alien crew members worked alongside humans with an efficiency that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. Nexari Communications Officer was collaborating with a human engineer to fine-tune the long-range transmitters. A Verdani navigator was teaching a group of human cadets how to plot courses through folded space. Everyone worked together as if they had been doing so for decades rather than months. But the true miracle was not visible in their instruments or their teamwork. It was evident in how fundamentally their alien allies had changed. The Nexari, who had once passively accepted molecular decay as an inevitable natural process, now actively fought against it. They had learned to crystallize and preserve entire nebulae through pure determination, treating the preservation of cosmic beauty as a personal responsibility rather than an impossible dream. The Zephyrians had undergone an even more dramatic transformation. Their species had always been masters of quantum mechanics, but they had worked within the limitations that physics imposed upon them. Now they had learned to quantum tunnel through entropy itself, creating pockets of reversed time where dying stars could be reborn and dead planets could bloom with life again. Captain Yemen, came a voice over the communication system. This is Admiral Sun Wu aboard the flagship New Earth. We are receiving final confirmation reports from all sectors of the galaxy. Admiral Sun Wu commanded the joint fleet from her massive vessel, coordinating the efforts of thousands of ships crewed by dozens of different species. She had been a simple space station commander just 2 years ago, but the crisis had thrust her into a leadership role that spanned entire galactic arms. The universe is no longer dying, Admiral Sun Wu announced, her voice carrying to every ship in the fleet. More than that, it appears to be entering a new golden age of expansion and growth. Star formation rates are increasing, dead systems are coming back to life, and even the cosmic background radiation is showing signs of renewed energy. Captain Yemen smiled as he watched the final entropy reverser activate successfully. The device, no larger than a small building, sent ripples of stability through space-time that would eventually reach every corner of the Andromeda galaxy. But he knew that the real victory was not in the technology they had built. The real victory was in how species after species had learned humanity's most dangerous secret. Reality was negotiable, and the impossible was just another engineering challenge waiting to be solved. Throughout the galaxy, civilizations that had spent millions of years accepting the limitations of physics were now questioning everything they thought they knew. The Kethmori, whose ancient wisdom had always taught patience and acceptance, were now building impossible structures that defied gravity. The Rithkari, who had evolved in the depths of gas giants, were learning to reshape matter at the molecular level through sheer willpower as Earth's influence spread across the galaxy. It carried with it humanity's infectious belief that any problem could be solved with enough determination and creativity. Alien engineers who had once designed within strict physical limits were now building devices that violated fundamental laws. Scientists who had spent lifetimes studying unchangeable constants were discovering that constants could be changed if you approached them with the right attitude. The transformation was so complete that it took Admiral Sun Wu's final report to make Captain Yemen realize the full implications of what they had accomplished. As she transmitted the last technical data about universal stability, she included a historical note that made everyone on the bridge pause and wonder. After reviewing ancient Confederation records, Admiral Sunwoo reported, "We have discovered that humanity's solar system was not overlooked by early galactic surveys. It was deliberately quarantined by our ancestors millions of years ago. The quarantine was not established to protect the galaxy from humanity's primitive nature, as we always assumed." She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a mixture of awe and amusement. "It was established to protect reality itself from humanity's ability to rewrite the fundamental rules of existence through sheer, stubborn refusal to accept the word impossible." Captain Yemen looked around his bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens working together to maintain their impossible ship, and he realized that the quarantine had failed in the most wonderful way possible. Humanity's dangerous gift had spread to every corner of the galaxy, and the universe was better for it.